everyone, welcome back to Beyond the Veil Tarot and Astrology. My name is Candice Marie. Thanks for joining me. I'll be your astrologer today. Happy Thursday, everyone. I hope your week's going well. It's that time of the month again. We're going to be doing the astro sign profiles, and this month we're going to be talking about the sign of Sagittarius. If you guys like my videos and you want to see more of them, click the bell button below and subscribe to the channel. Give me a thumbs up if you like this video and consider sharing on your social media. Equally, leave me a comment below and let me know what planets you have in Sagittarius or in the 9th house. Where is your Jupiter placement and what has it taught you? And if you guys want, I don't just create content on YouTube, I also teach astrology. So if you've ever wanted to learn the inner workings of your natal chart, how to read it, and for others, check out my Astro 101 course where I teach you everything you need to know about beginner's astrology, over 18 hours of instruction, and several different videos that breaks it all down for you to make astrology easy. I also have a 201 course that teaches you my predictive methods and transits. You can find all of that and my other courses at beyondtheveiltarot.com. All right, so what's up, Saggies? It's your season. Obviously, the sun is in Sagittarius. We got a Mercury retrograde in Sagittarius. What a great time to talk about this particular sign. We're gonna go deep today and talk all about everything kind of connected to this particular sign. Now, Sagittarius season starts around November 22nd and it goes until about December 21st every year. That's when we have the sun in Sagittarius, and the symbol for Sagittarius is known as the archer. Sagittarius is seen as the centaur, and they have kind of like the half body of a horse, half body of a man. They are connected to the element of fire, and they are considered a mutable sign. So they're feisty, action-oriented, they're very goal-oriented, they like to explore, and they are flexible and changeable because they're a mutable sign. Now, Sagittarius is associated with the 9th house. It's the 9th sign of the Zodiac, and its ruling planet is Jupiter. Jupiter in this sign is associated with the more masculine side of, I guess, Jupiter properties. So we think about expansion, philosophy, travel, education, in action, right? Because this is a fire sign. And this house is connected to also our beliefs, anything revolving around connections to teachers, mentors, the bigger picture of life. And it's considered to be a masculine sign because it's fire. And the colors that are associated with Sagittarius are purple, blue, and mauve. Gemstones connected to Sagittarius are turquoise, topaz, and sapphire. Now, you guys know I like to talk a little bit about the myth of each and every one of the zodiac signs. So the mythological background for Sagittarius is associated with Chiron. And you guys know Chiron. Chiron's currently in Aries. But Chiron was known for his wisdom and also his healing abilities and his mentorship. So unlike other centaurs who were depicted as kind of wild and unruly, Chiron was a little bit different. He was known for being noble and kind, and also teaching many of the Greek heroes like Achilles how to heal themselves and how to tend to their own wounds and overcome obstacles. So in mythology, Chiron was accidentally wounded by a poison arrow that was from Hercules. And because he was immortal, he suffered greatly until he gave up his immortality to end his pain. So this led to his placement among the stars as Sagittarius. Now there's other links to Sagittarius as well. There's Crotus, who is also a centaur, and he was the son of Pan. And he was known for inventing archery, and his association with the Muses led also to his immortalization in the stars by Zeus. Now, when we think about Jupiter and the association with Sagittarius, it's pretty obvious the connection here between that planet and these signs, because Jupiter is a planet that's all about expansion and growth. So Jupiter is associated with broadening our horizons, and also both physically as well as travel. There's connection here. Intellectual kind of growth, learning, philosophy, all of these topics really resonate with Sagittarius's love for exploration and adventure. Sagittarius is also known for being wildly optimistic, and Jupiter is connected to optimism as well as abundance. So Jupiter brings optimism and luck and a sense of abundance when it aligns with Sagittarius's kind of themes, generally positive and a very hopeful outlook, and everything is bigger, it's expansive. You know, the bigger picture has that kind of connection to Sag. And this sign is also known for their wisdom and philosophy. So Jupiter really lends that energy when it's connected to this sign. Jupiter encourages the pursuit of knowledge and truth, and it mirrors Sagittarius's philosophical nature. And this is also a planet that's known for freedom and generosity. So Jupiter's expansive nature promotes a love for freedom and generosity, and that's the connection to Sagittarius. That's really one of the core characteristics of Sagittarius's kind of like personality. Now, major themes connecting to the characteristics of Sagittarius, obviously we talked about optimism. You know, they have an inherent belief in good outcomes and can definitely maintain positive views on life. But they're also very adventurous. This is a sign that wants to get out there and see the world. They love to explore new cultures, ideas, and environments. Obviously, they're known for being very philosophical. They're very naturally inclined to kind of ponder life's bigger questions and seek knowledge. And they're known for being very honest, sometimes kind of like blunt, but very honest. They're known for their straightforwardness as well as their honesty and how they're kind of portraying their their belief systems and their experiences. They teach a lot through experience. I love Sagittarius's generous nature. I feel like these are definitely people who really focus on being able to share what they have. They want everybody to have more experiences, more money, you know, more fun. And they're very generous when it comes to their knowledge. And I think that that's something else that they really kind of bring to the table. They're funny. I like their humor. Obviously, Jupiter is associated with kind of comedy and humor. So I like that they possess a really good sense of humor and they love to make other people laugh. And usually it's just the things that come out of their mouth that can be a little shocking and surprising, but hilarious. And they're very inspiring. This is definitely a sign that I feel like their enthusiasm and their big dreams is amazing when it comes to motivating other people. However, with all signs, we see some challenging themes in regards to the personality characteristics. And so definitely some of the more challenging aspects of the sign is impatience. I have found really that's kind of key with all of the fire signs, but Sagittarius especially, they can get really frustrated with slow progress and they can get kind of like frustrated with detailed work because they have a hard time kind of staying steady and being consistent and focusing on the details. Sometimes they can have a tendency to be a little irresponsible. Obviously, we know Sagittariuses have a tendency to want to kind of catch flights and not feelings. So there can be like a little bit of like flightiness that can kind of come with this sign. And that really stems from their desire for freedom. And sometimes that can like lead to neglecting commitments when it comes to their career or their relationships. This is also a sign that can sometimes, if the optimism is not in check, they can be a little too overly confident. So sometimes their optimism can make them overestimate their capabilities or take on way more than what they can handle. And we talked a little bit about the bluntness. Some people would say it can be brutal honesty, but some people can sometimes see it as being a little tactless. And that's just because it's really hard for them not to share what's on their mind, what they believe in, and what they're thinking. So sometimes some of these placements can definitely come off a little hurtful or, like I said, a little impatient. But I feel like it's not intentional. This isn't something that they do intentionally to kind of hurt people's feelings. But it can happen. And obviously, that restlessness is really strong with them as well because they're always on to the next adventure, the next idea, the next trip, the next job, the next relationship. It can make them very unfocused. And so it's really hard for them to kind of do more than one thing at a time, or they may have, too many irons in the fire. And then something else that can kind of come up with Sagittarius energy also can be a tendency to exaggerate things. And so this is kind of connected more to Jupiter, where Jupiter wants to make things bigger. So there can be a tendency sometimes to kind of embellish stories or facts to make them more entertaining or more impressive. Now, when I think about archetypes kind of connecting to Sagittarius, the main one for me obviously is going to be the explorer. I think of the centaur, out there doing his thing, exploring and hunting. And this is really connected to their need for knowledge and, always kind of being on the move. Sagittarius energy is known for wanting to explore unknown parts of the world, different cultures, and I think that that's something that really is important to them. Like that's something that kind of keeps them going. I do see them also as, philosophers. So whether you're thinking of like a teacher or a mentor or, somebody who is really prolific in their beliefs, they're known for contemplating life's mysteries and sharing wisdom with other people. So they do have that archetype also of the teacher, because even if they're not a teacher, they generally enjoy educating others through their life experiences, telling their stories and sharing their knowledge. I could also see Sagittarius as the jester, that connection to, obviously Jupiter, bringing joy and laughter to other people and also inspiring others with sometimes a bit of like a humorous or ironic twist to their tone. They're definitely visionaries. They like to dream big and inspire other people with their future-oriented mindset. They take in other, belief systems and, people from different places into their ideas. And so they're able to kind of share that and be able to unite the world. But they're also seen, I think, as the liberator. This is somebody who is a sign that is all about advocating for freedom, breaking, obviously, conventions and encouraging others to do the same. Sagittarius is all about kind of like the higher path or, being able to kind of see above everything and talk about like the higher meaning and the purpose of life. So they'll inspire other people to advocate for things that are going to be bringing those opportunities to other people. And then finally, I see them as the storyteller. Sagittarius or the ninth house has associations with publishing and being able to tell stories and bringing stories to its kind of completeness. So definitely storytellers, and whether this is somebody who is in writing or publishing, or even like law is connected to Sagittarius as well. But the storyteller is definitely somebody who wants to kind of take something simple and paint this kind of grand picture with words, and definitely connect that to Sagittarius. Now, you guys know I like to play the sun, moon, and rising game. I always talk about how that's my favorite thing to do. So I'm going to talk to you guys a little bit about the differences between a Sagittarius sun, moon, and rising, and how to spot them and some of the differences in terms of their mannerisms as well as their emotional characteristics. So we're going to start first with Sagittarius sun. So if your sun is in Sagittarius, you may embody some of these traits. In terms of your appearance, they have more of an athletic build from what I've noticed. Generally, this is kind of reflecting more of like their active lifestyle or their love for movement. And they're generally taller in stature, although we can see that with the Sagittarius rising as well. And there's a tendency with the Sag sun to have more of like a broad shoulder and like a stronger, kind of more muscular back. I have found that the Sagittarius sun is very lively. They're very animated. They're always moving when they're speaking, and they kind of exude a sense of enthusiasm, and they may have like a very wide, infectious smile. You see that with the Sag rising too, but definitely Sag sun, tends to kind of show that in their personality. In terms of their emotional characteristics, emotionally, they're generally pretty optimistic, and they really seek to expand their emotional experiences. They can be very expressive because the sun is obviously in a fire sign, so it's able to kind of express that kind of excitement and kind of wonder. But there is sometimes a tendency to avoid emotional introspection. It can be all action and very little reflection. And they prefer to keep things light, and sometimes they kind of struggle with consistency, obviously, especially in emotional commitments, and that's due to their love for freedom. Now, the Sagittarius moon, on the other hand, is a little bit more, obviously the moon is a little bit more private. It's more the inner world and the emotional kind of inner workings. But in terms of their appearance, they tend to have less of the physical kind of connections to Sagittarius. It's more about their expressions on their face, and they can kind of convey that with obviously their emotional state. So when they're excited, their eyes get really big. You can see them get very vibrant and expressive. Their mannerisms, I think, are more, I have noticed Sag moons have like a really great belly laugh. I know that's like a weird thing, but I've noticed that they really laugh wholeheartedly, and they show surprise and enthusiasm very vividly. Sagittarius moon, sometimes, they fidget a lot. They can be a little bit more active when they're emotionally engaged. And these sometimes are people who have a tendency to want to live in a variety of different places, or they may have family from other backgrounds or other cultures. They may dream of living in a foreign land, or they may be from a foreign place and kind of move around a bit. Now, emotionally, I find that, they do feel things very deeply, but with an undercurrent of optimism. And they need a lot of emotional freedom, because sometimes they can feel a little claustrophobic with the moon in this sign, especially if they're in overly restrictive emotional kind of environments. They're very quick to bounce back from emotional lows, and they may avoid confronting painful emotions head on, preferring to just move forward and stay kind of like hopelessly optimistic, and sometimes avoid discussing and talking about their feelings. Now, a Sagittarius rising, in my opinion, is definitely the easiest to spot. I always catch myself watching like commercials and TV and stuff being like, that person's a Sag rising, and then I'll like look up their chart. For me, the dead giveaway sometimes is very, very tall, okay? They can be much taller than normal. Longer hair, or hair sometimes that's pulled back in like a very long ponytail, or they prefer to wear their hair pulled back in like a long ponytail. And a big old grin. They got that big old horse smile, that's associated with Sagittarius. And when they laugh, they'll laugh and like their mouth will be open. Like you won't see them laugh with their mouth closed. It'll be open, so you'll see the teeth, you'll see their tongue when they're kind of laughing, and they'll throw their head back. And they have a very youthful, kind of look. They're very energetic. Oftentimes they have a physique that looks like they're ready, to hit the road and go. They travel lighter. And for some reason, I've noticed Sagittarius risings, like I always see them without shoes on. Like they're never wearing shoes. And I don't know what the deal with that is. If you're a Sag rising, you'll have to tell me. But they'll run out of the house without shoes on. They're running around the house without socks on. Usually I've noticed that they like to be barefoot. Their hair can generally be a little bit thicker and unruly as well, or a little bit more like unkempt. And they have a very kind of warm, sometimes a little bit of like a flushed face. For their mannerisms, they're generally very outgoing and approachable. They're very friendly, they're happy, they're joyous. Their body language is also very expressive, and they use wide gestures. Sometimes they'll like talk a lot with their hands as well. And they always kind of walk with a bit of like a bounce. Like sometimes, like how I say Leo walks with like a swag. Well, like Sagittarius risings, I noticed they kind of like hop around, or they kind of like gallop. So they have like a sense of swag kind of to their motion. Emotionally, they're obviously very affected by their ascendant. So they come across as a little bit more joyous and optimistic, a little relaxed and kind of detached, and not really having a plan. And they wear their emotions outwardly. So they can be very, obviously optimistic on the outside, but internally there can be some kind of other things that are going on. They project confidence and a love for life, even if they're kind of inwardly struggling with things. They always kind of slap on their happy face and they're like, no, we're good to go. So the key differences basically with the Sag Sun is that fundamentally they're driven by their need for freedom and exploration, right? That's a part of their core identity. But for the Sag Moon, they're expressing their emotions through a lens of optimism and a desire for emotional freedom, or a change in terms of their home or their living situation. And then the Sag rising is expressing that. They're kind of like projecting that optimism and that openness out into the world. And I think something else I should say about Sag, all the Sag placements, I've noticed this with some of them, but maybe more so with Sag rising, is that sometimes it can be harder also to kind of tell or like decipher their ethnicity. They may look like they could be, mixed ethnicities. They could look like they're from one part of the country, but then they speak another language, or something like that. There's this sense of like them being kind of connected to the world, and not being totally fixated or associated with one particular expression of their cultural identity. And they have an appreciation for other cultures and styles. And that really shows through their clothing and how they kind of show themselves to the world. Now, Sagittarius in general, every sign has a body part that it's associated with, or a system within the body. And Sagittarius rules over the hips, thighs, as well as the liver. So if you have a Sagittarius, sun, moon, or rising, or if you happen to have Sagittarius in your 6th house, so like if you're a Cancer rising, You want to watch for liver problems, okay? This is something that can come up for Sagittarius because it's associated with the liver. So issues like fatty liver disease, hepatitis, and other liver-related health concerns can definitely be, areas that you're going to want to watch for. But sometimes they can also have hip and thigh issues. So, injuries or conditions that might be affecting the hips or thighs. And this could be things like strains or sprains or arthritis. Definitely see a lot of like hip issues, hip replacements, tightness in the hips. And I also see some issues with circulation connected to this. So due to Sagittarius's like love for, activity and sometimes an excessive lifestyle, circulatory issues can be present. They are also a sign that's known for overindulging because they're connected to Jupiter. So Sagittarius, being like the ruling planet, can lead to overdoing things, okay? So it can be, result in weight gain, digestive issues, fatigue from overexertion. I've seen a lot of like Sagittarius placements in Sag risings, like kind of like yo-yo diet. Well, they'll lose a bunch of weight, they'll gain a bunch of weight, and they'll have a lot of fluctuation. But, that can be managed very easily through, really working with Jupiter in other ways, continuing to study, continuing to travel, learning moderation, and kind of having Jupiter in other facets in your life is going to make it less likely that you're going to see some of that stuff. But they can have a broader kind of body, and they can have bigger hips and backsides and thighs and all that fun stuff. So they can look a little bit bigger, but a lot of it is going to be due to like the distribution, obviously, and the other parts of their chart, depending on what they've got going on. The health tips that I would have for Sagittarius, probably the number one would be moderation, learning to do everything in moderation, eating, drinking, traveling, spending, working, all of that stuff. Because if you practice this, especially in your diet and your exercise, it will prevent the likelihood of overindulgence or strain. Obviously keep active, right? Regular movement is important, and choosing activities that allow for some stability or grounding would be helpful, especially if you're like a restless Sag. So yoga or hiking to kind of balance that natural restlessness can be really helpful. Take good care of your liver, obviously avoid excess alcohol consumption and support your liver with a balanced diet rich in antioxidants. Practice mindfulness, okay? This can be really helpful to incorporate practices that really promote mental peace. So meditation to balance your kind of scattered energy can be helpful from time to time. And obviously you're a fire sign, so you got to stay hydrated. So hydration is very important for your liver, as well as your circulation and your overall health. Now, when it comes to Jupiter and astrology, some things that I kind of think about is that often Jupiter is associated with luck and fortune, okay? So typically your Jupiter placement is something you want to know in your natal chart. It's very important. It's not only kind of connected to good luck, but also opportunities and wealth, and this awareness that you can bring riches in. But Jupiter is also associated with spirituality. It has connections to spirituality as well as religion in the search for meaning beyond the material world. Jupiter also has connections and associations with legal matters and justice. A lot of times people would think this is connected to Libra, but it's actually associated with Jupiter and Sagittarius, as Jupiter oversees law, legal issues, and also the pursuit of justice. Now, I want to talk to you guys a little bit about the planetary dignities in Sagittarius. We know that certain planets are going to behave or perform in certain ways in specific signs. So we talked about how Jupiter is associated with Sag. So Jupiter is in its domicile in Sagittarius, which basically means it's in its home sign. Jupiter expresses its qualities of expansion, optimism, and philosophical understanding here most powerfully, and it's also externally. We think about Jupiter's association also with Pisces, and that's more internally, emotionally, or intuitively. Now, in terms of exaltations, there's no traditional planets that are exalted in Sagittarius. However, some modern astrologers consider Chiron to be exalted in this sign. Chiron's obviously not a planet, it's an asteroid, but if you happen to have Chiron in Sagittarius, it might be a bonus for you. Now, there's traditionally no planets that are considered to be in its fall in Sagittarius. The concept of fall relates to a planet being in the opposite of its exaltation, and since there's no exaltation here, there's no fall for Sag. However, there is a detriment placement, and that would be Mercury in Sagittarius. Mercury governs communication, logic, as well as detail. So it's in its detriment in Sagittarius because it's in the opposite sign. And it kind of makes it get lost in the details. It can be a little blunt. It can be too broad-minded in its approach. And it's kind of opposite to Mercury's more detailed, analytical, or precise nature. We're experiencing Mercury in Sag right now, so it's definitely been a theme over the last couple of weeks, up until Mercury gets ready to go direct pretty soon. But this has been a really interesting Mercury retrograde with some of the aspects to Jupiter, because it's been really highlighting a lot of the themes that are kind of connected to its detriment. Anyway, I would like to talk to you guys about planets in Sagittarius. So even if you're not a Sag, sun, moon, or rising, you may have planets or even a north node or a stellium in Sagittarius. So you will show some of the Sagittarian qualities in your personality. Now, we talked about how the sun in Sagittarius is the core identity and how that's connected to freedom, adventure, and the pursuit of truth. I find that these individuals are very optimistic, and they love to explore new horizons. So it's like an example, somebody who may have their sun in Sagittarius may be the one, organizing an impromptu like road trip to learn about, a different culture, or starting a blog about their philosophical musings, because their identity is kind of fused with those things. Versus a Sagittarius moon, their emotional responses are characterized by a need for freedom and optimism. And like we talked about, either home-wise or emotionally, they don't always like to be tied down. They feel things in a very big way and sometimes avoid emotional introspection. So as an example, a person might feel happiest when traveling or learning something new, finding emotional fulfillment and broadening their horizons. Now, Mercury in Sagittarius, if you have this placement, it means that the way that you communicate, the way that you think, the way that you learn is very frank, right? It can be big ideas, big concepts, but sometimes it can be idealistic or lacking detail. They think big picture and can inspire with their words, even if they overlook some of the finer points. But as an example, an individual might excel in teaching or motivational speaking, where broad concepts and enthusiasm are more important than the specifics. Now, if you have Venus in Sagittarius, you're taking the planet of love, harmony, beauty, and art and placing it in this sign. So love and relationships are approached with a sense of adventure, freedom, and sometimes fear of being tied down. They value honesty, and they may have a love for foreign cultures or foreign people with different backgrounds than their own. I have found that these might be people who also partake in long distance relationships, or they might meet people while they're traveling. This is definitely, I would consider, one of like the bachelor placements of the zodiac. I think, Venus in Sag, Venus in the ninth, Sagittarius rising, these can be signs and placements that are a little bit harder to tie down. However, somebody who has the Venus in Sag can totally commit. Sometimes they might date partners from different backgrounds or cultures. Sometimes they like adventurous date nights and impromptu kind of trips and getaways. And they really love adventure seeking in love. They want to seek new experiences. They want to go and learn something with their partner. And that's generally what they're drawn to. Now, if you have Mars in Sagittarius, you're taking the planet of action and placing it in this sign. So it's going to be about a drive, that's feisty and spicy, always on a quest for adventure. There is a sense of directness and confrontation and a desire to expand horizons through physical or intellectual pursuits. These are people who love to travel. These are people also who have a tendency to fight when it comes to, other people's rights, when it comes to justice. I've seen a lot of lawyers with this placement. I've also seen a lot of people who are connected and teaching something about like defense or like martial arts or something in regards to like combat. So, and as an example for Mars and Sagittarius, it could be a person who's very passionate about sports. They may be very involved in travel. They might like international marathons or engage in debates over philosophical topics. Now, if you have Jupiter in Sag, you're playing with home field advantage. So you've got Jupiter in its home sign. And Jupiter amplifies the optimism here. There is more opportunity for growth and more opportunity for abundance and a never-ending quest for truth. Now, this placement often brings luck, but also a tendency towards excess. You gotta watch where Jupiter is in your chart here. But an individual with this placement might have an innate ability to learn languages easily or succeed in fields like education, traveling, or publishing. Now, if you have Saturn in Sagittarius, this is putting the planet of discipline, hard work, and dedication into the sign. So discipline and responsibility are applied in areas of truth-seeking, philosophy, and expansion. So there may be lessons around freedom versus structure, as Saturn represents kind of like a limitation, and Saturn in this sign, which is associated with Jupiter, is about kind of expansion. So it's expansion and contraction. I always say this is a placement that's like, don't count your chickens before they hatch. Don't be too overly optimistic about stuff, but also that we realize that we need a little bit of encouragement and optimism and belief or faith in order to make firm commitments and, be able to kind of lay the foundation for things in our life. So this might be someone who works really hard to become an authority in a field like philosophy or international law, but faces challenges in balancing freedom with responsibility. Now, if you have Uranus in Sagittarius, you're taking the planet of unexpected surprises, rebellion, and freedom, and you're placing it in the sign of Sag. So you can expect sudden changes or innovations in your beliefs, education, or how you travel. There's a very revolutionary approach to wisdom and freedom in this sign. And as an example, you may be involved in progressive education reforms or pioneering new ways of cultural exchange. If you have Neptune in Sagittarius, you're putting the planet of spiritual kind of idealism and intuition and mysticism into a fire sign. So, it does mean that you may dream of places, you may dream of freedom. There can definitely be a blurring of the facts when it comes to a pursuit of philosophical or religious ideas. You may adopt foreign philosophies, cultures, or belief or spiritual practices. That's generally pretty common here. And as an example, you may be drawn to spiritual journeys or might have a career in art that reflects a universal or spiritual message. Now, if you have Pluto in Sagittarius, okay, so this is a more kind of like a recent generation. First of all, your guys' memes are killing it. You guys are definitely, for me, embodying the energy of, I think, that sarcasm and that dark humor with Pluto and Sag. But the deeper meaning here is about a deep, profound transformation when it comes to your belief systems, or a radical transformation when it comes to education, or how you may seek truth. There's definitely an intense quest for understanding with this placement, and someone who has this placement might pioneer new psychological theories about human consciousness or lead movements for education reform. Now, if you happen to have your North or South node in Sagittarius, this is important as well, although these are not planets. The North node in Sagittarius is meaning that your life path is going towards expanding your horizons and embracing faith in yourself and learning through life's adventures. So you're supposed to be kind of having more of that Sagittarius energy in your life. So as an example, someone who has this may feel compelled to leave a stable job for a life of travel and study, seeking personal growth through experiences as you're abandoning that South node in Gemini. But if you have your South node in Sagittarius and your North node in Gemini, it means that in a past life, your comfort zone was about exploring. There was a need to kind of move around and, kind of be free. And in this lifetime, you're needing more structure, detail, and responsibility. So an individual who has the South node in Sagittarius may have been a wanderer or a philosopher in a past life or in your early life phases. But now you're needing to focus on communication, local community, and detailed work to grow. Now, obviously, we talked about how the ninth house has this association with religion, culture, foreign law, foreign cultures, law, and long journeys. But it also has a connection with foreign affairs, cultural exchange, publishing and broadcasting, as well as, higher education and learning. So it's not unusual if people have a significant amount of Sag in their chart or ninth house placements. These might be major topics in their life. Now, you may have planets in the ninth house, which may shadow some of the qualities of Sagittarius's nature. So if you have the sun in the ninth house, it could be very similar almost to that of a Sagittarius sun. It means that a lot of your identity is tied to exploring learning and also having more of a broad-minded kind of view of the world. There's definitely a strong drive to expand your horizons. And you may be known for your travel, perhaps even writing books or giving talks about your experiences abroad. But if you have your moon in the 9th house, then your emotional fulfillment is sought through travel, learning, and philosophical pursuits, kind of similar to a Sagittarius moon. So there's this restlessness for new experiences emotionally, or frequent moves or travel. And on an individual level, you may feel most at home when you're abroad or have a career that allows you to move or travel very frequently. Now, if you have your Mercury in the 9th house, this means that communication is geared towards teaching, writing, or discussing any kind of philosophical concepts. There's a very intellectual kind of curiosity about you, and you may excel in journalism or international focus as an academic, or in a field like religion, or anything revolving around coaching or mentorship. And if you have Venus in the 9th house, it means that you're taking the planet of love and putting it in a house that deals with culture, philosophy, different backgrounds, the higher meaning of life. So, as an example, you may fall in love with someone from another country or culture, and it can lead to a life of cultural blending. Now, if you have Mars in the 9th house, it means that you have a warrior-like approach to exploration, passion for defending and also spreading your beliefs, and often through action or debate. You may be very involved in activism or educational rights, or be an athlete who competes internationally. And with Jupiter in the 9th house, it's a great place to have Jupiter, obviously, because you're going to be able to really expand in the areas of the 9th house themes. So you may be naturally lucky or successful in education, travel, or spiritual pursuits. I see a lot of people with placements like this who could be a professor at a prestigious university, or a very successful author, or somebody who focuses on travel or philosophy as their main kind of focus in life. Now, Saturn in the 9th house is taking, obviously, the planet of structure and placing it in this house. So there's Saturn-type karmic lessons revolving around 9th house areas. So where you went to school, if you finished and got a degree, if you had a mentor or a teacher. And there's definitely a serious need to study or commit to one's personal belief system or philosophy. It's possible that you might work to achieve a high-level education or face challenges in legal matters, but you gain wisdom through these experiences. And if you have Uranus in the 9th house, it means that there's sudden innovative changes to your beliefs or your education path. Maybe there's more sporadic travel, and also a more rebellious or unique approach to the traditional 9th house themes. So it's likely you could be involved in like pioneering new educational methods, or have a sudden life-changing trip that kind of goes on for you at some point that really broadens your perspective and your mind. And if you have Neptune in the 9th house, it means that when it comes to 9th house topics, they can be mystical, magical, but sometimes confusing or idealistic. So you might not be sure what you believe in, or if you want to go to school or get a higher degree. You may have a curiosity about foreign cultures and places, and there can also be like this dreamlike quality to some of your pursuits here. I see a lot of people drawn to spiritual retreats, or teaching a form of spirituality or religion, or some kind of like higher knowledge with some of these placements. And then if you have Pluto in the 9th house, you're taking Pluto and putting it in a house, obviously, that's going to radically change and transform something through education, travel, or your belief systems. So sometimes there's like an intense or obsessive quest for the truth with this placement, but oftentimes it can mean that you meet a teacher or a mentor, or by completing a higher level of education, there is a major change or transformation in your life. So it could be someone who's radically changed, their belief system, or they have a profound impact on education reform, or when it comes to law and like legal kind of topics. And then finally, looking at Jupiter, and if we look at just Jupiter through the various houses, this is something you're going to want to know, because Jupiter is like your lucky star. It's going to show you where it can bring you some kind of growth or abundance, or where there is going to be something very positive that can kind of come to you. We have Jupiter transit, obviously, that changes every year, but you have a Jupiter return every 12 years. So you might want to know what sign and house your Jupiter is in, so you can reap the benefits of that particular cycle. Now, Jupiter in the first house, probably one of my favorite placements. These are always like the comedians. These are always like the biggest smiles, the warmest kind of nature. They have a very expansive personality, and it makes them like larger than life and very optimistic and very generous. So it generally brings luck in personal endeavors and a positive body image. Somebody with this, just naturally attracts opportunities into their life, and they're very charismatic and confident, and that really just kind of draws people in. Now, Jupiter in the second house, it means that Jupiter is enhancing your financial prospects, your values, and your personal resources. So, here there is a potential for wealth, but there's also a potential and a likelihood of risk of extravagance. That can definitely happen, overdoing it. I think as an example, an individual might find that money flows easily to them here, perhaps through investments, or they may have a philosophy of abundance in their approach to material possessions. But I definitely see a lot of overeating, spending, consuming, collecting that can happen with Jupiter here as well. Now, Jupiter in the third house is expanding your intellectual pursuits, okay? Communication, your daily interaction. So there's a love for learning, teaching, short distance travel. Maybe you love vehicles. And as an example, this might be someone who really excels in public speaking or writing, and they easily connect with neighbors, siblings, or local communities. Now, if you have Jupiter in the fourth house, this is bringing growth and abundance to your home life. This could be your family, your roots, your property, and there may be a large family or a love for spacious homes. That's sometimes what I see with Jupiter in this placement. As an example, this person may have a very nurturing personality. They may have a big family or have grown up in a family that's very culturally rich that encourages exploration and travel. Now we have Jupiter in the fifth house. This is one of my other favorite placements. I would say this placement is known for really fostering creativity, being very romantic, and having a lot of fun. It can indicate a luck in love as well as children and creative projects, but there's a risk of excess in pleasure. So you got to watch for that. This is kind of a playboy or a playgirl placement. This can also be somebody who has a love for gambling or kind of taking chances or kind of playing their hand at the stock market. An individual here is often very successful also in the arts, or they have a flair for entertainment or performing. And perhaps they enjoy just having a very active, vibrant love life. Jupiter in the sixth house is going to be enhancing themes revolving around, health, work, and service. So it can bring success if you're in this field, anything health related, or it can make your daily work feel more meaningful and expansive. You guys are the ones that I need to have you come over and organize my closet, because you guys excel in productivity, organizing, having some kind of knowledge about nutrition and fitness. And you may work in, a profession where you can help people on a large scale. So it could also be things like medicine, or you may have just a very optimistic approach to health and work and be very, very productive with that placement. Now, Jupiter in the seventh house obviously is bringing your luck to you when it comes to other people. So it expands relationships and partnerships, both personal as well as business. So there can be a tendency towards beneficial relationships, but also a need to balance giving too much. You may also love foreign, cultures and partners. You may have a wealthy spouse. That's definitely a placement for a wealthy spouse. But it could mean that you're attracting people who bring growth and opportunities into your life. And it may be involving a profession where partnerships thrive on education, philosophy, travel, law, those kinds of things. You could also have an abundance of clients if you have a client-based business here. Now, if you have Jupiter in the eighth house, this is really bringing that growth and development. In the eighth house, it's going to be all about deep transformation. So you may excel in having shared resources, a psychological understanding of other people. This is another wealth placement that can come through inheritance or partnerships, but it can also mean excess in shared matters. As an example, you may have an intuitive understanding of, other people, or maybe you have a love or a background education-wise in psychology. And also you benefit from joint ventures. So investments, inheritances, wealthy spouses, stuff like that. Things come to you through some kind of joint venture with another person. Jupiter in the 9th house is a great placement to have because Jupiter obviously is at home with this energy. So it's going to amplify things like higher education, going and getting that, higher degree, traveling and going to all over the world, places that you want to go and explore. You may be very spiritual. You may be also very talented when it comes to writing or teaching. So an individual here will always be a lifelong learner. They will always be traveling and looking to find ways that they can kind of grow. And there may be an interest in some kind of work in an international setting. Now, Jupiter in the 10th house obviously is going to be bringing you expansion in your public world. So this elevates your career, it elevates your reputation, your public standing, and there's definitely a lot of potential for success and recognition. But also there's a risk of overambition here, like almost like doing too much and you get recognition for it, but it's just like a never-ending thing. So as an example, people with Jupiter in the 10th house can become very well known in their field. Especially if they're involved in law, education, or any area where they can influence the public or utilize their opinion. That's generally where they're going to get some kind of recognition. These are the people who always just walk into the jobs and they don't even really have to apply or interview, and they always get the job. That's something I've always noticed about them. Then we've got Jupiter in the 11th house, which is meaning that there is expansion through socializing, gathering networks, friendships. These people like to party. They're very optimistic about the future. They care a lot about, obviously, the collective. And these are also people where, luck can come to them through friends or some kind of collective group. They have a tendency to be involved in humanitarian causes, and they generally have a lot of friends. They're very focused and very optimistic about achieving their goal, and they really know how to kind of get the crowd going. They can be like a really good hype person. And then finally, Jupiter in the 12th house. And although, Jupiter is associated with the 9th, it is comfortable in the 12th house as well. So this is not a bad place to have Jupiter. This does enhance your spiritual growth and your compassion and also your subconscious. You can be very intuitive, but also, there's a side to you that is very private, and you like to kind of have solitude, or you like to work behind the scenes. You can be very spiritual or religious with this placement as well. And there's generally a want or a need to feel like you can give some kind of service to others. Now, as an example, you can be drawn to spiritual retreats, maybe work in hospitals or work with charities, or have a profound, kind of connection to your intuition. And dreams can be very visual with this placement as well. It can help kind of guide you when it comes to your life path. So that's just a little bit about Sagittarius for you guys. I hope that you're enjoying Sagittarius season. Once again, if you have any placements in Sag or in the 9th house, let me know, and let me know the aspects that it's making. I'd love to hear more from you guys. Make sure you're subscribed to the channel so you can stay along with this particular series that we're doing. We're going to be doing another 3. So we've got Capricorn, and Aquarius, and Pisces still to go. So we'll be wrapping it up right at the end of the astrological new year. But leave me your comments and give me a thumbs up if you like this video. If you guys want to see more about me or my work, check out my website at beyondtheveiledtarot.com. Also, we're going to be here tomorrow. We're going to be doing live readings on the channel sometime around 6:00 p.m. Central Time. So that's going to be 4 p.m. on the Pacific Coast, and that's going to be 7 p.m. on the Eastern Coast for the full moon in Gemini. So come hang out with me, get a reading. Let's see what's going on with this full moon in Gemini, and I will catch all of you guys back here very soon. Take care.